You see, the problem with time is right now, every one of us at this moment is as young as we will ever be. In the sense that this is a time right now we are never getting back. And it's not like, oh, it's that specifically. We'll never have it that exact way again. No, it's just this entire period can never be the same way again. You see, in my experience, I find that birthdays gradually become more and more just a reminder that, you know, this period of you'll never have this time back ever again. And then that turns into this anxiety over, am I spending this time the right way? Am I doing as much as I could? And I think that's like, man, it's nice out. But that turns into a bit of an unhealthy thing. In the sense that I think you need to understand that life passes by every second, and there's just a level of it that never comes back. I think you need to understand that, because this is your one shot. But on the other hand, this constant obsession over the now ends up removing you from the now a lot of the times, I find, and I see. So, I mean, basically what I'm saying here is, we place far too much importance on these grand experiences. And I find myself torn here, because naturally, in my mind, where this moves to is, like, if we're going to talk about, like, the topic of death and what happens, what are you losing? A lot of the ancient Romans and just ancient cultures in general, but primarily what I've been reading is a lot of stuff from the Romans, and they believed that all you lost when you died was whatever you had in the present. They believed that the future was never here for you, and that the past was gone as soon as it passed. Like, the past, there is only the present. You can only experience the present, essentially, in a fact of the matter sense. They believed that. But then, if you get into, like, the scientific side of things, where, like, Albert Einstein had his theory about how everything there, you get into the sense that time is our way. It's true in the sense that we understand it, but it's not an objective fact in the sense that you could argue we created time to explain change. And then there's some people where I don't really know how it works out. They try to say, well, change proves the existence of time, but that's kind of circular logic, in my view. So you get this I'm looking right now, and it's this beautiful night out, but I can't help but think to myself, man, I'm never getting this night back again. And it sucks. But it's like I was saying earlier. Maybe it's the way we value things. Because like I said, you need to understand that your life is passing you by every second. There's, as far as we know, this is our one shot. Our one shot. But if we spend all our time worrying about how we're gonna improve, like all this stuff about what if every decision I made in a day was to improve myself? Well, not only is that not realistic, and I guess it's, well, in the sense that, like, you're not even conscious of most of the decisions you make. But you know what, that's trauma, and that's just pathetic. My real problem with this is, if your every thought is about improving yourself, You never just existed with the version of you in the now, experiencing the version of you in the now, which leads to you then regretting not experiencing the you in the now and having a lot of nostalgia for the past, trying to take things back to the way they were. So maybe it's more a matter of damn, it's just really I it's a very personal thing, I suppose, so it's very hard to define the experience of the passage of time. The only thing we can definitively share with each other without conversing is that we are both experiencing time as it passes, but how that manifests, I suppose, must differ in a lot of ways. Some ways we may connect, but for all any of us know, this may be the last time we hear cicadas chirp. For all we know, this might be the last time we feel that slight moist film on our skins as the condensation from our glass as it sits in the sun. This is, for all we know, this is now, every time we get in cars, for all we know, there's a pretty considerable chance, in the scheme of things, when we compare it to other things, that we might go. But rather than seeing this as something to, like, you'll get a lot of, like, people who just, like, very much, they're just like, well, even though they wouldn't exactly say this, but essentially what they want life to be is, let's sit in a house, do nothing, stare at a wall, maybe occasionally we can go out to eat, and we'll just watch sweet things on the television, we'll read sweet stories, and we'll never, ever, ever think about death. And we'll never, ever do anything that might result in danger. We're going to keep ourselves, we're going to basically sheltering. And when I mean to say sheltering, I mean some level of it is admirable and beneficial. So a very small level of it, in my opinion. But I think most of it, the majority of it, is, like, ridiculous, and it just sets people up poorly for what even the real experiences are going to be, because it almost, in many cases, it tricks you into thinking that everything else is just off limits and forbidden. Even just quiet your thoughts. Don't think about it. Don't look outside. And then a lot of it is the argument for, well, we want to live as long as we can. Well, here's the thing with that. Sure, if I were to buy a motorcycle and decide that, you know what I want to do? I want to take a cross-country, all 50 states trip. Sure, that would be dangerous. But it's not really, if you're getting in a car, you're signing yourself up for that. So people act like motorcycles. Well, let's be honest. If you're getting a car crash on the highway, you're in a car, it's not good. So really, if you're okay with dying, that chance of dying, what does 5% more make? Or that's not really, it's a bit more than that, but it's, I think essentially, rather than trying to use statistics here, because that would just be a weak way to do this, what I think about is, if that trip was really what it took for me to experience life, sure, it would be dangerous to an extent, but that would be my experience of life. That would be taking everything for all it's worth, a full experience, or a more full experience. So these people who suggest never leave the house except when absolutely necessary, never put yourself in a dangerous situation, always do this and that, make sure you do this, never read this kind of stuff, don't do anything that might put you limit the danger as much as possible. Well, that limits your experiences. So what difference does it make if you live 20 years longer if you don't do anything you care about within that time? Why do we value our time based on the amount of it rather than the fullness of the experience? And why does this get normalized? And it's not even that, you can think whatever you want and you can disagree with me, obviously. But I have trouble understanding why this is such a widespread thing, because seemingly on paper, it just seems so bleak, in complete contrast to what it's marketed as. So, I mean, I don't know if, I'm being... Why do we think about things this way? It's like, if you've ever read The Catcher in the Rye, there's in the last chapter, I believe it is, it's the last chapter, I believe, there's a line about how, as much as you want to protect your kids, and as much as you want to step in and stop when you see them getting near something risky, it's best to just let it be and to let the child experience it. And that I could pick 30 different lines from that book to claim, because each of them, I like that book a lot, so there's a lot of stuff I really like in there. But that line, along with the line about the museum never changing, and there's another line about... anyway, that really hit me, and I think that's a good idea of what I'm trying to convey here. So, there's always a risk, but I think ultimately, at the end of the day, rather than letting other people completely make the decision for you, or at all make the decision for you, at all, I should have said, you've got to decide your values for yourself. You've got to decide that, because if you were to grow up always hearing about how dangerous everything is, and how you shouldn't do this because that's so dangerous, and how people who do that are dumb because it's dangerous, and how all of this is dangerous, and how if you walk in a parking lot, you might get hit. Oliver, don't look that way, don't look that way. Oliver, what are you doing? At a certain point, it just becomes... If you're being wired like that from such a young age, it just becomes debilitating fear a lot of times. The better option is to understand the danger, know what's practical and what's not, what's dangerous and what's not, and decide for yourself. Within reason, obviously, you gotta be practical about this and not an idiot. I'm not saying every single little impulse you have, go on and do it. That'd be retarded. What I am saying is, I guess I'm just saying, you gotta live life, because it's like, if any of you have ever watched the film The Dead Poets Society, there's a character in the film who, his dad is a doctor, and these are all a bunch of kids who are going to this preppy school, this private school, and this one kid's dad is a doctor. And he was trying to plan this kid's entire future out for him. You're going to go to Harvard, and you're going to be a doctor, and you're going to do it just like me, and until you're out of my reach, you will do everything I say. Basically saying, up yours, I don't care. And, I'm not going to spoil it, but, it doesn't, But, and I'm thinking to myself, that's what a lot of parents do. Except, not necessarily with careers, although it a lot of time manifests as that, too. It's just trying to completely control every decision and every aspect of a child's life to the point where it just becomes, in their attempt to sugarcoat everything, it just paints the reality that inevitably slips through as all the more bleak.